In this video, I'm going to show you what the Illustrious 18 is for card counters, why it's important, as well as why I think it's in need of an update. But first off, guys, welcome back to the channel. This is A1 Blackjack, and I'm Steak Sauce. In the description of this video and in the pinned comment, you will find this sheet with all these links. Feel free to follow along with me, or you can go there after this video and check it out. Before I show you the Illustrious 18, what is it? What does that even mean? Well, the last piece that you need to perfect card counting is to learn deviations. A deviation is when you make a betting decision, or in this case, a playing decision, that is different than what basic strategy normally tells you what to do. So by this point, if you're watching this video, it is expected that you have learned basic strategy and can perfectly play every combination of hands possible in blackjack. If not, I have my free drill here in the printouts that you can find here as well. So feel free to print those out, fill them in, or you can practice with my online drill. All right. But the next step after learning basic strategy is to keep the running count. I've made videos on this in the past, and there's hundreds of videos out there because this is the sexy part of card counting, right? That's why we call it card counting, because that's when you have to keep the count. But after basic strategy and learning how to keep the count, you then implement a bet spread, and you have to be able to correlate your bets with the rise and the fall of the count. And then finally, what we're going to talk about in this video is that when the count gets high enough, or sometimes low enough, we sometimes deviate from this plan of basic strategy. We do this to maximize our profits. Certain hands, for example, are so likely to win that we might want to double down instead of standing or hitting. Other times we might want to split to get twice as much money out on the felt, again, to get more money out there. And occasionally we might also want to curb our bets a little bit by maybe standing instead of hitting to avoid busting and losing our money before the dealer has even had a chance to play. These are called deviations. All right, and the Illustrious 18 are considered to be the most profitable of these deviations. Now, I like to say they're the most kind of quote-unquote profitable deviations, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. But first off, every Illustrious 18 chart that I have ever looked at has been a bit tough to interpret. So I wanted to make a foolproof chart with these explanations that's very obvious to understand what to do and when and how to deviate. For example, this is the charts that I've made. This is the original Illustrious 18. These are all 18 playing decisions. And below that, if you look here, I have some explanations for what that's talking about. For example, if I look at this row, the second row from up here, this says 16 versus 10, hit, stand, and then at 0 plus. What is that talking about? Well, if we go down to the explanation, it says that when we have a 16 versus the dealer's 10, we would normally hit. That's what basic strategy tells us to do. However, the deviation is we're supposed to stand when we have a positive running count. All right, so in other words, I said down here, at any positive running count, we're going to stand against the dealer's 10 with our 16 instead of hitting like basic strategy normally would tell us to do. All right, let's check out maybe one more row. This row right here, number 4. Again, if you look up here, it says your hand, dealer's card, basic strategy, deviation, and the true count. So in the 4th row, if we have a pair of 10s against a dealer's 5, it says that normally during basic strategy, we should stand, but the deviation is to split at the true count of +5. Right, and that's exactly what this explanation tells us down here. So again, I wanted to make kind of a foolproof chart that explains all these deviations. If you don't like this, then you can try this one. All right, here it is kind of written out as you might see a big chart with every single playing decision that's possible in blackjack. And the ones that are highlighted that are not just a white cell, these are the Illustrious 18, along with, of course, taking insurance at a true +3. All right. Now, I mentioned earlier that these 18 are the most profitable, and technically that is true. So if you deviate at these times, these are the most profitable. However, if you look at kind of some different deviation charts on their own that go beyond the Illustrious 18, that they have more than just those 18 deviations, you may have noticed that some of the 18 themselves aren't even on there. For example, Blackjack Apprenticeship, probably the most well-known blackjack site. It's a site that I completely trust and would agree with everything they say. They don't even have a 12 versus a 6 listed on there for their expanded deviations. It's not there. Other books that you read will tell you that you should never split 10s. So down here at the bottom, it says that we should split our 10s versus a dealer's 5 at a true +5, and our 10s versus a dealer's 6 at a true +4. Okay, depending on what you want and kind of your own personal strategy, if you want to improve your longevity at a casino, if you split 10s, it's kind of a telltale sign that you are a card counter, and so you may or may not want to do that strategy depending on which casino you're at and whether it's one that you want to kind of keep playing in or not. All right. Now, I said earlier that these 18 were the most profitable. In fact, I want to show you kind of an article from a website here, and that is from Blackjack Review. All right. So on Blackjack Review, it kind of gives you the A through Z, everything Blackjack, and underneath I, it has the Illustrious 18. All right. So this was originally coined, this term was coined by Donald Schlesinger. And here those 18 are again, these 18 most profitable decisions. However, if you read a little bit further along, you can see that it says that the big three, which is to take insurance, the 16 versus a 10, and the 15 versus a 10, those account for nearly 60% of all deviations if you were to play all over 100 of them while you were at the casino, right? Those three alone count for over 60%, or nearly 60%. The top 12 account for nearly 90%. Okay, so that said, you probably don't need to know all of them, but you might want to know, a few, because they are the most profitable thing that you can do. And it's been said that if you were to make kind of like, let's say $4 million over your career as a card counter, all right, that's not impossible. Definitely could happen. 1 million, so 1/4 of that 4 million, 1 million of that, those earnings would be from playing deviations. Okay, so should you know this? Yes, you absolutely should know these. Now, does it take some time? Yes, it does. It does take time to learn those. However, only the first few are probably going to be the most profitable. So do you need to know all of them? No, not necessarily. Now, that said, I want to show you another chart here. And if you go back to kind of that original pinned comment that you see down below of this video, there is a couple of charts that I have. It says the deviation charts for hit 17 games and stand 17 games. Let's click on one of those. And you'll notice that there are more than 18 playing deviations here. There's actually 29. And they're not kind of in the normal order of most profitable to least profitable, but I put these in the order that I think are easiest to memorize, so that as you kind of group these together, you will have the best chance of learning them and memorize them in order to kind of take those to the casino and make more profits the longer that you play. All right. For example, these first four here, we have 16 versus 9, 16 versus 10, 16 versus 8, 16 versus ace, and 15 versus a 10. All of these I grouped together because they're very similar spots on the chart, and they're all supposed to be hitting for basic strategy, but the deviation says that we're supposed to stand at these true counts. All right. Similarly, if I go down, there's a bunch of soft totals. You'll remember that in the Illustrious 18 itself, really the soft totals were pretty much empty. Okay. There wasn't anything to learn in there for those most profitable 18. But if I go back to my chart here, and you can know like the splits for 10s versus 6, 5, and 4. The ace 9 versus 6, ace 9 versus 5, and ace 9 versus 4. Those are the same spots, right? This was at a true count of 4, 5, and 6 respectively, and so were the ones for splitting 10s. So there's a few on here that are pretty easy to remember and easy to know, especially if you group them together. All right, so these are the 29 that I would suggest that you know. Now, if you are kind of a pro and you want more than this, here in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to drop a Patreon, which is going to have an expanded deviation chart besides the two that I showed you here. There's also going to be several more drills that I plan to put on there. And so if you found this video interesting, or if you like the sound of that, please subscribe to this channel so that you are going to stay in the loop with all those things coming up. And until next time, remember, this is A1 Blackjack.